Hello and welcome to BroPartisan Hacks. We are back this week. I had a full week of news we're gonna go through. Had some things, some interesting conversations between the two of us this week. I think we're gonna touch on, and I think you had the meeting you just told me about, where you talked about your book club. I want to go into that because you said you gave some push. But tell me about that.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, let's jump into this USA Today poll.
like I said, the pulling it up because I don't pay for USA Today. Yeah. All right. So this first story we had here is the defeated, impeached, and Trump still commands the loyalty of GOP voters. I mean, I know they did a poll for all this. I just want to say, like, duh. I don't know. Like, I don't know how you feel about that coming from the left, but...
Well, the funny thing to me is this. The thing that stood out to me was the 54% of Trump voters remain loyal to Trump, while 19% remain loyal to the Republican Party. Please, pretty please, can Trump start his own party? Can that be a thing? Can Trump go ahead and just start his own party and just divide the Republican Party so that Democrats win for forever?
I think I saw...
The other thing...
Oh, yeah.
The other thing is, the reason that stood out to me, being loyal to a politician is like being loyal to a prostitute. Like, you can be loyal all you want, but I promise you, she ain't loyal.
You're saying they're just trying to get paid?
Bruh.
Bruh.
Like, come on. This...
yeah, there it is.
You know what I'm talking about. They're and it's just like the same shit that you see right now with fucking Biden. This piece of absolute garbage that, then all over lefty Twitter, and you're probably not part of that, so you probably don't know. But it's just like, people are like, we worked our asses off to get this dude elected, to get, to flip the House, flip the Senate, all for them to just shit all over us. And I just want to say, told you so, motherfuckers.
I mean, yeah, nah, we're definitely gonna get to Biden here in a little bit. As far as this goes, I think it's an interesting thought, and here's my one consideration as far as, like, if Trump splits the party. I do think that it makes it almost impossible for the Republicans, or whatever his new Patriot Party, I think is what it's being pitched as. It's being focus grouped right now, but it makes it very difficult, but not impossible. And the reason I say not impossible is that like 10 million Obama voters went and voted for Trump in 2016 when he was elected. 2, there were a lot of first-time voters that also did the same. Now, Bernie had the same kind of thing where it was a bunch of disaffected voters and they were all, first-time people. But it was the other side, like, it was the same thing that you saw on the other side. So it's difficult, extremely difficult, because he would lose, like, the fundraising logistics setup that they already have in place, and all the other consistent donors that they have in place, and it would really have to be like this pivotal grassroots thing. But, like, I don't see it, like, actually getting up off the ground. And if the CPAC stuff that you were watching the other day is any indication, they have no intention of doing that.
No, and they love Trump. Like, they love Trump.
Well, I would say that the voters who are there love Trump, and the people running it may not, but they see which way the wind's blowing in their case. I mean, they look at these polls and they say, like, oh man, it's like if we don't, like, if we ever want to win again, we at least got to ride this thing out, and it's not done yet. You know.
Yeah, the politicians are all definitely trying to take his spot. Ted Cruz and Donald Trump Jr. both are just like they want to be Trump so bad, but they're so terrible at it. Like, one of the things that I know about Trump and the whole phenomena that goes along with it is he has this weird charismatic quality. Like, and I can't explain it, but he's funny. Like he's really, really, really good at rallies. He knows how to riff. He reads a room. He can read a crowd. He's really good at it, and he's really good at when something doesn't hit, he can roll, and it's fine.
Keeps going. He just keeps going.
Right. But these two chuckleheads, they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to riff, and they're trying to be cool, and then they just fall flat. And, dude, almost every last one of these people that I watched, Matt Gaetz falls flat. Matt Gaetz was the one who told the joke. I don't remember what it was, but it was something stupid. He was like, no,
huh?
We are under attack. Like, just...
And then it was like, yeah. Hey, it's better than please clap, all right? Like, it could always be worse.
Yeah, it was just it's just so much cringe, and I loved every second of it because it was just so cringy, and like the people were trying to yell and stuff, but nobody was laughing. And I think probably because it's Florida, and the population of the attendees at $350 a ticket were like 75 and older, and so like it just wasn't
a high energy crowd. You're saying
wasn't hidden. And so, but going back to Donald Trump, and like part of it is his weird energy that he was good at, and he cultivated this following that's crazy, which can lead us into the next poll that we talked about this week. Speaking of cultivating a following.
Mm-hmm. Did I have it pulled up?
Do you have it pulled up? No, it's the one that we texted about the Democrats being their biggest concern is Trump supporters.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get that going here because I mostly saw that on Twitter.
It was kind of a thread on Twitter.
Yeah, and it was who did that? It was like Eclipse.
You know what? I saved it. Oh, here we go. The lady who you sent me is at K Soltis SOLTIS Anderson, and that's the. I felt like this was a pretty right-winged framing in general.
Case Soltis, SULTIS?
SOLTIS, KSOLTIS. Anderson. So, yeah, that. That
thing right
there. So it's funny looking at this. So Republican top 5 concerns, I guess, is that what it's called?
Yeah,
is that what it was?
It's concerns.
So number 1 is illegal immigration. Number 2 is lack of support for the police. 3 is high taxes. 4 is liberal bias in the mainstream media, and 5 is economic damage from COVID-19. And for Democrats, the top 5 is the spread of COVID-19 infections, Donald Trump supporters at 82%, white nationalism at 79%, systemic racism at 77%, and economic damage from COVID-19. The spread of COVID-19 doesn't even rank top 10 for Republicans. That's interesting.
Doesn't even rank top 10?
Or top 5.
That is 5. No. That is number 5. But I understand.
No, the spread of COVID-19. That is economic damage from COVID-19.
Oh, I see.
Two different things.
Damage from COVID-19, yes, which is
right. That's all they care about
because they don't. The virus itself in their eyes.
They don't actually care about whether 500,000 people died or not. They just want to go. They want poor people to go back to work. I
don't think it's that they don't care. It's that they don't believe that that's it. Like they don't. I can tell you exactly what it is because they're looking at the flu virus numbers and then they're looking at the COVID numbers and they're wondering why the flu dropped to basically 0 last year and COVID was so high. So I mean, you could say that, but then why are we doing it if it only helps the regular flu virus, but you still get COVID? Then the question is, why are we doing this? Why don't we go on the forced lockdown? Why don't we do these other things? And then when they look at the politicians like Fauci,
because you don't want to do a forced lockdown because that would.
I've expressed this to you already. Why do they look at people like Fauci and when he doesn't appear to take it as seriously as he says, they don't necessarily like when he's being hypocritical about the virus. He says so deadly. They look at that and they say, well, if you don't need to do it, then I don't need to do it. And it doesn't matter what he goes on MSNBC and says. It's when the camera rolls off and he doesn't know that there's a camera and he's pulling his mask off right next to other people, not taking an appreciation for his own warnings. Then they look at it and they say, well, it must not be as serious as you say it is. That's why.
Because everything's a fucking conspiracy. Look. We haven't had a full lockdown in this country. We haven't had a full, actual shutdown. Honestly, you know what our numbers have been like since the freeze? When we had a fucking quarantine? Our numbers at the school have been fantastic. Yeah. Like, we have had 0 cases.
Because everyone's at home.
But still, usually, we were at school, we were averaging 1 or 2 per day of new cases. And because people don't mask up, so it's just whatever. So you have to quarantine entire basketball teams. But since then, I mean, that was a forced quarantine, essentially, because nobody went outside. Nobody did anything. We stayed our asses at home. I think it helped.
Yeah. Quarantines work. No doubt.
But, of course, we're not going to do that because that would have to close down businesses. And, they're the backbone of this country. And we're not going to do anything to help them if we force the quarantine. So, I don't know what to tell you. The other thing is,
so, it begs, again, and not to get conspiratorial, but then it begs the question of why not? Like, if that's what it takes to get it done.
Those are your people.
It's not
your
just
people don't want to actually fucking help anybody.
You got everybody, you got all branches of government now. What's stopping you? Nothing.
Filibusters.
Nothing.
Oh, no, I know.
It's stopping
There's
you.
Nothing.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Because the Republicans can't do shit.
Yeah, except for filibuster, which is, they don't do shit.
What would stop them from doing reconciliation?
The only thing that Republicans do is cut taxes for rich people.
What would
that's
stop
the
them
only
from passing
policy
any of that
that people
reconciliation?
pass.
What's stopping them from passing any of
You know,
that?
I think you only get. I think you only get
Nothing.
1 a year. I think you get 1 a year. So they're trying to do the $1.9 trillion bill in here because that's the only thing that they're going to get passed. Because you get 1 per year of reconciliation.
I thought McConnell
Everything
did it
else
like
has to
4
go.
times.
I
thought Mitch did it like 3 or 4 times.
You get 1 a year. Yeah, he did it 3 or 4 times total.
Total, okay.
Because you get 1 per year.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, so
So
you
then they
have
gotta
to.
wait.
You got to wait. So that's why they're throwing as much as they can into this $1.9 trillion bill, um, and that's why they're really pissed off about the $15 minimum wage not getting in that bill, and this fucking the senatorial parliamentarian jackoff throwing out the increase in minimum wage. So, and they're also pissed off at Biden and Harris not fucking taking them to the mat on it. But that's not what we're talking about right now. We can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. Well,
the other thing that I like about this thing is Republicans are such police bootlickers. But then when it came to the police at the Capitol, they didn't respect the police and law and order. They were just like, yeah, we do what we want. We're on the good side. You should be helping us. We're on your side. I actually heard that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's actual bootlicking for police. I don't think they actually. Nah, I say that. I think it's that they. Well.
I think there's some of that. If you think about where Republicans live, and this is just kind of my 2 cents on this. So like, yeah, there probably is some bootlicking on this, and okay, yeah. I just don't think that's the whole story because again, Republicans predominantly live in rural areas where they're much more likely to actually have a personal relationship with their friends who are cops. Like in their small town, you're friends with Sheriff Joe down the street, and he's cool, and we need to help him out. And then Officer Friendly that drives through my neighborhood and keeps the kids from running around. Like in a small town, like I grew up in a really small town. I graduated high school in a really small town, and I knew every one of the cops that lived in that town, and every one of them that worked in there. Hell, I worked for one for a summer because he had a side job building fence, and I was out there like in the middle of the field building this big old deer fence for a sheriff deputy, like who was running a side business. So, does that lead into why they feel that way? Maybe. Could it all just be a whole bunch of bootlicking? Also, maybe. Like, I don't know, but I think there might be more to it.
Could it also just be racism?
I mean, the top 3 things on the Democrat list is Trump supporters, white nationalists, and systemic racism. And you can't tell me that you don't lump all 3 of those into the same one thing.
Yeah. Ditto on your side, the top 2 things: illegal immigration and lack of support for police. Black and brown people. That's those 2 issues: is black and brown people. Lack of support police stems from Black Lives Matter movement, and illegal immigration is brown people.
Antifa's like 80-90% white guys, isn't it?
That's not at the top of that list.
It's not, but it does go into the defund the police movement. It has direct ties to lack of support for police versus the defund the police. And up until
but the purpose of all of that is what? Is the systemic racism that goes along with the police beating the shit out of black and brown people.
But that's less of a concern than Trump supporters, obviously. But I mean, like I said, in a lot of people's eyes, I just see those all 3 as the same thing. Even though Trump was in office for 4 years, but the systemic racism, has been going on for forever, apparently.
Well, I don't know when this poll is taken either, but understand that the January 6th was not that long ago.
Oh, I understand.
So, if we don't have the institutions that we have in this country, I don't know how that plays out. Those events. And so when you see something like that, that is scary. I don't
So
know how else to
you
put
think
that.
they should have done what Pelosi wanted and had crew serve machine guns, ready to just mow down people?
You saw what the Black Lives Matter the Capitol looked like during the Black Lives Matter protests, and what the Capitol looked like on January 6th.
I did.
So they had people standing out with heavily armed military personnel standing out in front of the Capitol during a Black Lives Matter protest.
And
then they had like a couple dudes there.
The Capitol Police requested the same support in 2020 as they did in 2016, yet they were denied it this time. They had multiple calls for support to get the same kind of level of security prior to the January 6th thing as they had at the inauguration of Mr. Donald Trump.
Who denied that, though? Who was in charge of that?
Mayor Bowser, I assume.
Mayor Bowser's in charge of the National Guard?
No, but she would be in charge of sending more police units there, which were the initial requests from the Capitol Security to the D.C. Police. They are responsible for backing them up. And then the National Guard, obviously, would be it would actually have to have approval from both the I believe the sitting president and Mayor Bowser. So all those requests were denied. So when you want to sit here and tell me that, hey, you had more security in the 2016 thing in 2020, why did the Democrats who were in charge of that area deny the security?
No.
Yeah.
What I said was the Black Lives Matter protests, not the inauguration, not the electoral.
It doesn't matter. They're in charge of the same people who are in charge of the security. I don't care. I don't care if it was in the middle of the year or if it was on July 6th. The fucking requests for the reinforcements were denied. And they were denied by Democrats. Why?
Can you pull that up where they were denied by Democrats?
Yes. Alright. Chief of Capitol Police says he tried 6 times to call for reinforcements to deal with pro-Trump rioters, but kept getting blocked. So, to get the National Guard, he had to call for the Sergeant of Arms of both the House and the Senate. So, assuming that's the case, you probably would have one Republican, one Democrat. It would have to be an agreement. Asked the U.S. military for help. Said she could not recommending sending the Guard. The General, Piat, says he did not recommendation against this. Was only saying he did not have the authority to deploy additional guardsmen. They arrived shortly after 3 p.m. after the gates were already breached. We could have held them at bay. Capitol Police 6 times to summon reinforcement before Wednesday's attack. Was blocked from doing so by his superiors. So who are his superiors answerable to?
Apparently they have all retired.
You're away from your mic. I can't hear you.
Senior Army official Lieutenant General Walter E. Piat couldn't recommend that Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy authorize deployment. I don't like the visual of the National Guard standing a police line with Capitol in the background. That's what Walter E. Piat said, I guess.
A Pentagon spokesman said the Capitol Police did not request help until the protests had turned violent. Thing is, like, they have recordings of all this stuff, so like, you can't be able to lie about this if anybody wants to actually take it seriously. Yeah. Like, the radio logs are recorded.
So it says Sund, who is the former chief, resigned his post. He contradicts claims made by officials after Wednesday's assault on Capitol Hill. Sund's superiors previously said the National Guard and other additional security support could have been provided, but no one at Capitol requested. So this dude is saying, yes, the F I did. So yeah, there should be an investigation in that, regardless of all of that. The shit happened.
Yeah, I agree.
And so for the Democrats that got pulled in this for their number one concern to be Trump supporters, I think is logical, honestly.
Yeah.
Because that shit just happened. I mean, it's been not even 60 days since all of that. And so that's that. And, with the 24-hour news cycle, those things kind of get pushed back because people are like, oh, that happened. And then we're just moving forward and we don't think about that anymore, which is bananas. But like I said, that's why I'm curious when this poll was taken, because I wonder if it would be the same now. Because
I want to say this poll was taken
right now,
within
everything
the last
that
2
I've
weeks,
seen,
but I don't have that handy. But this is a recent poll. I can tell you that the results are recent, at least as
the results are recent, but I don't.
But I don't know when they asked the question, right? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, and it takes a minute to answer. They were like really in depth, 30+ questions
To evaluate it and go through it and
yeah,
other stuff. So yeah,
so
that makes sense.
That's one of the things, and so I guess that's why I think I wonder if it would be the same if we're a year from now, obviously, but I'm just guessing that when this poll is taken, people were very, very frightened about the Trump crowd. Like, if you'd asked me a month ago, I'd probably agree with that.
Yeah.
Probably say, yeah, I'm very concerned about that, because clearly you're ready to mobilize. Just say it. Like, that's...
All right. Well, I want to talk about this with you. The Hawley plan. Did you see this? Did you look at this article I sent you?
Yeah,
so
I'm ready.
I was just going to lay it out real quick. So what this plan is it's a $15 minimum wage, but only applicable to businesses with profits of over $1 billion. And the idea here, and the reason that I would actually be more curious to see how this would go, is again going back to protecting the small businesses, the mom and pop shops, while still providing the workers of those small businesses. Here it kind of lays it out what that would look like. For example, a small business employee making $12 an hour would be eligible for a $2.25 per hour credit under this plan. Over the course of the year, the employee would be able to get a total credit of $4,680 in the form of 4 payments of $1,170 from the IRS. So
that would go to the employee directly.
That would go to the employee directly, is how I'm reading this. Not to
the
the business.
I was worried that it would go through the business, which would...
yeah, it looks like it's directly payable from the IRS, much as your little stimmy checks have been. If you file e-file or whatever, then the money goes direct deposit. You don't even have to worry about it.
So, that sounds good, but I wonder what that would do to small businesses employment-wise. Like, would people still want to work for small businesses, or would they go to the multi-corporation? Would that make Walmart, Target, those folks even stronger than they already are and put more small businesses out of business?
I don't know. Because here's kind of what I would see happening, and maybe this is, I'm reading too much into it, but if Walmart's forced to pay an employee $15 an hour and they're still bound by overtime rules and regulations of their own company, then they're going to want to make sure that none of their employees get overtime, because that ultimately costs more. If they can have a full staffing, complement, they're not shorthanded or whatever else, but whatever size store, if a store takes 50 employees to run full shift on a 24/7 Walmart, you just want to have your people working 40 hours a week. But maybe it's your small business, your guy could work a little bit more, work a little bit extra, work it towards his raises, and make the overtime, because you're working for Steve rather than the corporation. So, I mean, to me, I think it adds actually more of a competitive advantage to the small business versus what you would be relegated to at the Walmarts. But maybe not. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea, because everybody's big concern, quote unquote, is the small business, and this plan kind of takes away from that. I do find it interesting that in this Breitbart article, they admit that like everybody likes raising the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Only 34% of Americans oppose it, and 6 in 10 support increasing it.
I think that's the reason why the Republicans are trying to do something with it. I don't know enough about Josh Hawley, but he doesn't strike me as a guy smart enough to come up with this plan. So it's probably I'm just saying, right? So I'm sure he's like, hey, we got this junior congressman. Let's get him some bill to push back on, or maybe it's really just to make Biden look bad, right? Because he already said he's not going to go for $15 an hour, and here the Republicans are coming to the table and saying like, hey, look, we'll give it to you guys. Do you want it? Here's our stipulation,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's. I mean, I yeah. No, I think this is an like I said, it's an interesting Breitbart article because it says a study by the Economic Policy Institute found between 1979 the wages at the bottom 90% have only grown by about 22%, and the top earners saw their wages grow by 343%. Like, this is not a very Breitbartish article.
It's almost as though you never read Breitbart.
Well, you're right. I only read the ones that you send me.
That's fair. That's fair. So, this guy's pretty good. The guy you're thinking of is Nolte. He writes extremely slanted articles. So if you see any Nolte articles out of Breitbart, yeah, they're going to be as bad as the MSNBC ones. So this is an interesting thing.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though, and go kind of leaning into that. Honestly, progressive ideals are popular and they poll well among the electorate. Think about Florida, right? So Florida, Trump won Florida by like 1 million, right? 1 million percentage points. Let's just say.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. 1 million percentage points.
But they also voted to increase the minimum wage in Florida, which is not a very Trumpian policy, if we're being honest. It's not a Republican policy, but they voted for Trump going away, right? Like, but, legalizing weed, credit card rates are way too high. Government officials shouldn't be allowed to own stocks or become lobbyists right after leaving. Government should directly finance the development of new drugs and then allow breakthrough pharmaceuticals to be sold cheaply without a patent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, majority of people, the majority of the electorate agrees with these things that are considered progressive and they're considered radical. But the reality is that these things are very mainstream. Medicare for All actually polls really well. Like, it polls really well among the electorate. Even after the fucking smashing by the media, where they went on all-out assault against Medicare for All, it still polled over 50%.
Yeah.
And it polls at like 75, 80 among Democrats, and it still even polls like 50, 49% among Republicans. Like, it polls really well. People understand that there's a need for health care in this country. And the only thing holding us back is these fuckholes in Washington that are getting paid by these corporations and the lobbyists. Because really, let's be honest, Rob, the senators and the Congress people, they don't write the bills. Who writes the bills? The lobbyists write the bills.
K Street writes the bills.
K Street writes these bills. And so, but the majority of Americans think we should get rid of them. We should get rid of K Street. We should get rid of money in politics. Everybody agrees with that. Maternity leave. Everybody agrees that workers should be able to take like 12, up to 12 weeks, if not more, a minimum of 12 weeks of paid time off.
You know why you're going to get a lot of conservative support on that one? Because on the whole, they're having more kids.
Yeah, families, moms. No, absolutely. That's why I'm like, why are you guys not on board with this thing? Yeah. Why is maternity leave not at the top of your list instead of fucking immigration?
Well, it's an easy win. I mean, whoever can get it done is an easy win, you know.
Politically. She tried. I mean, France does maternity leave and paternity leave the best.
Oh no, honestly. South Korea. France isn't even close to South Korea.
What is South Korea's policy?
The mothers get a year off, and then they pay you for your kids.
Oh, they don't pay you for your kids in France, but they do get a year off in France.
Yeah.
They get 10 months. Wait, that's not right. Yeah, no. Parents, both parents, mom and dad, get 10 months for adopting a kid. Like if you go through an adoption, you get 10 months to get to know your new baby or your new child or your new teenager, whatever you adopted. I don't know. Cool. But no, like we don't do this right. And the only way you can get like
there are so many
off
other...
is if you have FMLA insurance that you buy.
There are so many other countries and even conservative, you know, places that conservatives like look at there and see like, hey, we can do that, you know, and they all do it better, pretty much. All of them.
I don't know. There are a lot of things that we can do better that we are prevented from doing better by the moneyed power in this country, the people with real power.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump pretty quick through these next few little news stories here. We're just gonna do a few quick hot takes on them. You ready?
Okay, ready.
All right. Number one, Dominion sues Mike Lindell for $1.3 billion for defamation.
Yeah. He says he's excited about it.
He says, thank you. I'm excited about it. I'm excited. Thank you for suing me. I'm going to get into some discovery, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to get to see all your dirty laundry. And, you know, while I don't think he's going to have anything, I also don't think they're going to get any money out of him, like, at all.
I don't know that he's going to have any money.
The thing is,
but I've heard
there's a lot of people that are actually still buying his stuff.
I've heard conflicting stories on this stuff. Like I've heard that on one hand he's lost like $65 million or something like that. Yeah. But then on the other hand, his businesses has increased. Like I've heard very conflicting.
Here's this article. It says their sales promo codes like 45 proof. That one has increased MyPillow sales from 30 to 40%. Whereas he says more than 20 retailers have dropped his products.
Okay.
So online sales apparently are going up. Retail stores are going down. So it's going to be really hard for anyone to say like he did this for money.
No, I don't think he did it for money. Absolutely. I think he is a true fucking believer.
Believes everything he says. And so like with defamation suits, legally speaking, you have to prove malice. You have to prove you knowingly lied about something, and I don't think they can do it.
No, he's not lying.
He believes everything he said.
He absolutely believes it. Like all, dude. So speaking of, so you know that the Newsmax and the OAN networks have been like reading off their, we don't have any evidence to back up any of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
They did that in CPAC. They did that in CPAC. The people running CPAC read it at the beginning, like before anybody got up there to talk. He's like, "We just need everybody to know that these, the opinions of these are their own. They don't represent CPAC, and we don't have any evidence. Just do your research. We recommend everybody do their research and yada yada yada." Yeah, no, they absolutely read a disclaimer for the CPAC speeches. So funny. I love it. I love
great.
every second of it.
That was great. So the next story I have here is Chuck Schumer can shut the fuck up. So on this story of Chuck Schumer can suck it, he says the bottom line is Texas can go it alone and build a system that ignored climate change. And so as we talked about last time in the rather lengthy exposition you had me do, we basically discussed how this framing here is a little inaccurate.
Well, yes, but I think there was enough information and enough knowledge for people to have taken care of it. For things to have gotten weatherized or for preparations to have been made. That's what I'm trying to say. There was enough time and enough knowledge out there for preparations to have been made, but it wasn't profitable at the time, so they didn't do it. That's the bottom line, to me.
Yeah. The idea that the winterization for the entire state's power supply, and again, I guess my biggest problem was the arguing back and forth. So I 100% agree with what you're saying as far as the winterization. The part that gets me is the arguing back and forth between like green energy and fossil fuel energy, and who was to blame. And I really hate that argumentative point.
I think, man, I read a really good article, and I sent it to Nick last night. It was actually on MSNBC. So it was on MSNBC, and it says Texans were casualties in Republicans' war on green energy. So let me see if I can send it to you. He goes into basically lambasting all of these politicians who, instead of working to help people, they went onto Fox News and raged against green energy, and like Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz went to Cancun, but like all of these politicians, and you had that crazy ass mayor in that little bitty town who like just blasted his entire constituency and then resigned the next day.
That was the Colorado City mayor when his little town of like 5,000 people or whatever.
Yeah, just was like, we're not gonna help you. Help yourselves, pussies. Like, I don't get it. This MSNBC guy goes into and talks about Kropotkin, I think I'm saying this right, and mutual aid, which was this guy who was studying animals in Siberia. Basically, facing scarcity of resources in the extreme cold tended toward cooperation rather than competition for survival. Among humans, Kropotkin theorized the law of mutual aid is folded into higher moral sentiments. It is the conscience, be it only at the stage of an instinct, of human solidarity. It is the unconscious recognition of the force that is borrowed by each man from the practice of mutual aid, of the close dependency of everyone's happiness upon the happiness of all. And so it was kind of like Texans, we helped each other out. And it wasn't like we're fighting each other off for water. It was get everybody help right now. While our politicians went and talked trash on green energy because they get paid a lot of money from oil and gas.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Abbott's Fox interview. I knew that he was ripping ERCOT because of they didn't get their winterization. He's going to call them to task for implementation of the 2011 plan, or at least so he says, right? So,
yeah.
So I mean, we'll see. And like I said, there's going to be investigations on it. We're still in recovery mode, dude. I don't know if like for you, it's over. For like the people where I work, we're gonna be doing this for months. Okay, so
yeah, for me, yeah.
Like we're still repairing pipes and everything. We're still replacing pumps. We're still out there changing seals on sealed pumps. Like there's a lot of damage that still happened, and like as far as I know, we haven't even started up yet. Like we're nowhere close, right?
Yeah.
So
no, there are people that are going to be living in hotels and
yeah.
and they can't get into their homes, like and I've already said, and I just want to reiterate that I am very, very lucky to be in the position that I'm in. I'm very, very lucky to have lived where I live. My house is brand spanking new. I'm very, very, very fortunate. I didn't even have any frozen pipes outside either. I went and checked that this week. But it is bananas that I was wearing shorts on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like that is.
Yeah, we were like outside walking. I was crazy. Like, man, I need a hat. Like, whew, burn my head.
This is crazy. Like it is. Somebody said something that
but the thing is that it's not the first time it's happened. It happens all the time. I know when I was in high school, we lived up near Amarillo. It snowed 14 inches in March, and the next day it was 82 degrees.
Well, yeah, but it happens all the time. But usually, it's a day turnaround. And it's very, very localized. That's one of the things that we talked about last week was usually those things are very localized and you can suck energy from everywhere else. I don't know that it's ever happened before where the entire state froze over. I also read the other day that, and this is awful, but I had no idea that this had also affected Mississippi. This also affected Louisiana. It's also affected Arkansas. Like this same
like the Texas
snowstorm,
outage or the same freeze.
The same freeze.
Yeah.
Like there are people in Mississippi that still don't have water. And I'm sure there are places here too, but a lot of the attention has been focused on Texas, and there are other places that are also hurting. Which I don't know if that's privilege that I didn't know about that, but I think
it's the nature of the information being presented to you, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's not like you go out of your way to look for news from Mississippi or Missouri or whatever.
That's facts. Yeah.
I mean, you don't care about that. You're like, Missouri is number 49 or 50 on the state education thing? Man, that sucks for them. And like, that's the extent of your knowledge of the state.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to Mississippi. And there's still a lot of racism in Mississippi. Yeah. Like, boy, it's uncomfortable. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to Mississippi, but it's uncomfortable.
I have driven through. Does that count? I don't think that counts.
No, it doesn't count.
I've never spent any time
there. I spent time there, and it was. If you aren't going to the right spot. Either way, if you're white or if you're black and you go into the wrong spot, it is uncomfortable. There's a feeling in the air. I'll say that. There's a lot of mistrust, and so that's a lot of these our beloved liberals don't really like that. Anyway, next story.
What? Say that.
They just don't know about it. They want to talk about it, but they have no idea what it's like there.
Oh, okay.
The mistrust and the
the East Coast, the coastal liberal people who actually have no idea what it's like.
Yeah. Actual racism.
Real quick, I want to hit this topic. I was actually pretty pleased to see this. This is the Mrs. Catherine Tai, who is the U.S. State Trade Representative, saying that the U.S. tariffs on foreign imports are a legitimate tool in the toolbox, And it says that the Biden administration is working to keep like 350 billion. There it is. No, that's the wrong number. With respect to the 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum, we have to acknowledge we have an overall very significant global marketplace problem. Steel and aluminum is driven primarily by China's overcapacity, and that's built into these materials. So, according to this, White House said it would keep tariffs on more than $350 billion in Chinese goods. Catherine Tai previewed the bad news to a group of U.S. business leaders. So, obviously, the corporate people that you're always complaining about want these tariffs to go away. The tariffs that were in place over the previous administration are being carried over. So I was very pleased to see this as someone who deals with a lot of steel and aluminum. I like that.
What about the farming stuff?
It doesn't say it's on here specifically. This only mentions steel and aluminum. But with 232 different tariffs, it just says tariffs on steel and aluminum. I don't know if it has anything to do with the soybeans or whatever else that they were fighting over. So what this means to me, though, specifically is that you've heard the term that cheap Chinese steel. You've heard that in the news before, ever?
Yeah.
Okay. That's real. That's really bad. When you get something that doesn't perform the way it's supposed to. So you can have a pipe that has 300 psi in it, and it's designed for it, but because of an integral flaw in the material itself, it can burst, it can pop, and it can kill people. So this, and keeping that stuff out of my industry, is really good for me, and I'm very happy to see that. You want to segue into this one right here? We can draw this one right in.
Biden administration on trade ban.
So Huawei, obviously the Chinese telecom giant, is trying to get back into the U.S. And so it hasn't happened yet. But they do want to basically get back into providing 5G towers, cell phones, and infrastructure services to the United States. If you recall, Trump had them banned under Pentagon recommendation, basically, for basically saying like, hey, these are our number one geopolitical adversaries. We do not want them building our infrastructure, kind of idea. The British, I think, were doing a review, like a security review of some of these things and keeping them out of critical infrastructure, but still allowing them to be used for like all the civilian purposes. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to see that they're like, "Hey, new administration, can we come back and play?" Like,
I don't know. I would just like to see anybody really investing in our administration, or in our infrastructure, rather.
Yeah.
Can somebody invest in our infrastructure? Since obviously
they're not going to invest in the infrastructure you want. This isn't what they're like. They're not going to build the high-speed rails, and they're not going to be building the new bridges and roads and things like, you know, updating the piping and the water systems and the distribution and providing insulation so that nobody else loses their water when it freezes. That's not what these people are doing. These are for your little cell phones here. This is what they do.
I know.
So, sorry about that break. That's just kind of what this article is. I thought it was interesting to see, talking about the chipsets. I didn't get into it too much, other than to read that they were looking to get back in the talks with the U.S. Administration for these things. So, looks like they definitely want to compete with Google. Harmony is a multi-platform operating system and would be fundamentally kind of a replacement for Android over time.
Really? bold.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it was cut off beforehand, and so that China's like, well, we'll just do our own thing and replace you. Ha ha ha. So, do you want to go into the? Actually, you know what? I really want to hear about your book club real quick before we start in on why Biden is the worst president.
Okay, so this is funny. So our meeting was Wednesday, and so I hadn't read but the first chapter.
And what was the name of this book again?
It's called So You Want to Talk About Race.
Okay.
And so Monday, the week of our little discussion, because this gives me like 9 professional development credits to do this book study. So like you have, yeah, you have to do 75 over like 5 years or something like that.
Within how?
Anyway,
what's your time frame?
5 years.
Oh, okay. I was like, a year? Ugh.
No, 5 years to do 75, and so you have to recertify and repay the state. Whatever. Anyway, so this was I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'll jump into this. It's 9 freaking credits. I'm gonna get in, right? So I really want to participate, right? Because it helps me. So Monday, the meeting, the discussion is on Wednesday, and Monday I haven't read anything. So you have to have read up to like the first 5-6 chapters or whatever. And so I start like speed reading, like I'm going in, right? And I'm taking notes and I've got all this stuff and written down. Well, the meeting is at 4:00, and we get out of athletics right at like 4:00, and then usually I have track practice. So I did all of this research and made all these notes and I did all this stuff, and then I missed the meeting. I jumped in 45 minutes late. So I didn't actually get to ask any of my questions that I had. But I sent them an email to make sure that they know that I'm involved.
Hey, I read it. I missed the thing. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. So one of the things, there are 2 things that really stood out to me. One, and I want to talk about this. So one of my favorite things to do is to I troll.
No.
This dude that I can't stand. I trolled Jack Posovic's Twitter, and I read through it. And one of his...
Did he actually respond?
No, he never does.
Okay.
But so the thing that his followers love to talk about is China and all of the horrible things that the Chinese are doing to the Uyghurs. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's how I'm going to say it. And so one of the things that keep popping up is the forced sterilization of the Uyghurs. And so I always like to jump in and be like, what about those women at the ICE detention facility that just happened like last year, blah, 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 which is like 5-6 women, right?
It was
maybe 10.
One doctor.
It wasn't a lot, but it was shitty, and it was forced hysterectomies, which is awful, and there are investigations going on right now into that. So, but I always like to bring it up and be like, bitch, Anyway, so I'm reading this book. And it mentioned just in passing the forced sterilization of Black and brown women. And so I was like, let me do some research on this. Bruh. 1924, there's a court case called Buck versus Bell. And in this court case, they legalized forced sterilization against people that are mentally incompetent. And so the judge on the case, the lead judge, said out of his mouth, 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. And so and this case has never been overturned.
Yeah.
And so basically the state or whoever can just force sterilization on anyone they deem mentally incompetent or mentally unstable or whatever. So since this ruling's inception, there are recorded 70,000 sterilizations, which over 100 years doesn't seem like a lot, but it's actually closer to 150 to 200,000 sterilizations, because those are, the unreported ones. And so this actually did happen in the South. They used this Buck v. Bell ruling to sterilize prisoners, to sterilize lots and lots of black and brown women. Not conducted with informed consent, and in like even as early as 2014 in California, they were doing this in America, which is just I had no idea.
Just for my own question, informed consent is a legalistic term, and it begs the question in my mind that is the mentally handicapped person able to give conformed consent in any situation? Like, do they live under power of attorney? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just asking the question.
So
I'm just trying to understand if you know the answer.
So the thing is this Bell person.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the story on I'm going to just go back. So here's the story. This lady, Bell, or is it Buck? Carrie Buck. Buck is the lady. She was a young girl, and her parents couldn't take care of her. This is in the 1920s, obviously. This was rougher times. So her parents couldn't take care of her, so she went into the foster care system. And these people were like, hey, we'll take care of your daughter for you. Well, then their nephew rapes her. She becomes pregnant. Now, in order to save embarrassment, because this is the 1920s, in order to save the embarrassment, they have her committed. And then the state says, or somebody, I don't know how it went down, but basically they were like, we need to go ahead, and because her mama was an idiot, she's an idiot, we need to go ahead and sterilize her so she can't procreate anymore. And basically women didn't have a whole lot of rights back then, and so they had her committed, they had her deemed mentally incompetent, and then forcibly sterilized her. And so it went to court and had all this stuff, and so they were able to prove that she's not very smart or whatever. But it was basically a cover-up deal. There's a movie about it. I think it's a Lifetime movie, but which nobody's seen. But it's kind of bananas. So it really just it's a matter of what they can prove. If you've watched that movie, I Care a Lot, have you seen that yet? No. It's on Netflix. It's amazing. The premise of that is this lawyer, she gets doctors to say that these patients or these elderly people are mentally incompetent. and they need a legal guardian. So she plucks these people that don't have a whole lot of family, that nobody to speak for them, nobody to take care of them, and says, hey, they're mentally incompetent. They need to go be under my guardianship, and they need to go into the home. And so she puts them in these homes, and she basically just takes everything. She sells their house. She sells their stuff. Like, just absolutely just bilks them for everything. And these elderly people just have no rights. They have no way, like, they're not involved in the court proceedings. They're not involved in any of it. And so it's pretty bananas, dude. Like, I think that's a lot of what's going on here. Is the same thing, is that people have no way of proving their mental capacity, and so they do these sterilizations, and they're really, like, it's really, really unethical.
Yeah,
anyway,
no, it's grotesque.
That's not even
in any
that's not
situation.
That's just one of the things that really, like, blew me away, that I didn't know about. I didn't know about that court case. I didn't know any of this stuff. It was just kind of a side note that she mentioned, that I was like, went down this rabbit hole in research.
I'm gonna pull this up for you.
What is that?
It's the 1951 medical paper on the benefits of sterilization from the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Margaret Sanger. She was
eugenicist.
Yeah. So I went down that rabbit hole too.
That's where my brain first went whenever I was thinking about this, but the time frame doesn't.
So I went down that rabbit hole too, because there's a lot of conflicting information regarding Margaret Sanger. But yeah, she got really involved with, like, Madison Grant and a lot of these eugenicists that were that Hitler ended up taking a lot of the, like, Madison Grant's writing.
These are great ideas.
Was a what?
It's basically Hitler going like, hey, these Americans, they got some good stuff over here. We need to.
You're breaking up. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was agreeing with you and making a joke. Please continue.
I didn't hear it. All right. So, yeah, Madison Grant, piece of trash. Hitler used his writings to form his opinions. That good old American. Anyway, so to go back to what the other part of...
I was scrolling through real quick. I just want to point this part out. However, the sterilization program should not be confined to the physically or mentally inadequate. The program has wider implications and broader applications.
Yeah.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Margaret Sanger, everybody.
It's pretty crazy. I think she got away from a lot of that eugenicist stuff later on.
That was like 15 years before she died.
But they were the ones who were funding her, and so, like, she was trying to get funding from elsewhere, but the eugenicists were like, contraception is great. Yeah. Hey, look at this here. Look at sterilization. And so they really kind of influenced her in that regard, because they were funding the things that she wanted to do to help women, and she just got sucked in, really.
So in our last 40... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, so I wanted to talk, though, about the chapter on intersectionality, because what I wanted to bring up was a lot of the issues that you had with intersectionality, and how the process would work for real systemic change. And so I'm trying to decide if I want to read you the email or my notes. So, like I said, I sent in that email. Here's the thing, and this is what I know. Most people live, work, exist in their bubble, and so one of the things that I think white people struggle with is they don't know their privileges exist. They know their own struggles. People know what they have issues with. They know their struggles. They know they've struggled, right? And so it's hard for people to accept that somebody could have had it more difficult than them. Okay? Because they never really look outside of their bubble. That's why I give that Chad example of, like, that's something that white people can relate to, because they may or may not have experienced that, but you at least know somebody that has, right? Most people understand that issue. Here are the things that you talked about that are part of this woman's intersectionality arguments. It says intersectionality decentralizes people who are used to being the primary focus of the movements they are part of, i.e. the Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street thing we were talking about. It says it may not have even occurred to you that others within your movement have never felt prioritized. Intersectionality forces people to interact with, listen to, and consider people they usually don't interact with. And so the problem with the Occupy movement is that people wanted to address the concerns of marginalized groups, which is fine, but then there became a lack of cohesion and the movement fell apart. In order to take on major powers, everyone has to be on board, and you have to have a set of tenets. You'll never defeat power, i.e., big banks, corporate power, Wall Street, etc., when you fight amongst yourselves. This is why the left never fucking wins. This is why it's so hard for the left to win, because it's so hard to get everybody on board with one thing. The right, the conservatives, you guys get on board and they're like, oh, this is our thing? Yes, I'm all in, right? And so Trump, while he had all of his little things that were wrong, that people didn't like, they were like, yeah, but he can win, and he does these policies that I really like, and that's it. That's the only thing that's important. And so with the left, you don't have that, because there's always these different intersectional issues that come up. So while I realize that, like, yes, I'm a white man and I check literally almost every single box of privilege. Like, I have 2 parents, household, I am white, I am straight, I'm cisgendered, like middle class America. Both my parents have degrees, I have a degree, etc., etc., etc.
So, I mean,
my question though is that I wanted to ask is, how do you address excuse me, the intersectional issues and still have the cohesiveness or the togetherness to fight against the real oppressors? Because when you're looking at everyone as an oppressor, you lose the fight against the real problem, the real power. And so I never got around to getting that answer, but that's my question, because like I said, it comes with what you were talking about is the oppression Olympics, and how do you represent the diversity of identities that interact with the subject matter without losing focus of the real fight? And so that's kind of just where I went with that. And like I said, I haven't gotten any answers yet. So if anybody has thoughts on this, please share them in the comments, because I want to know, because I'm on board. I'm on the team. But our fight is with the bourgeoisie. Like, I don't know how to make those things match. What do you think? What do you got? Anything?
I mean, as long as you recognize you're a member of the proletariat, I'm okay, I guess.
Obviously, I'm a member of the proletariat. You are too. If you
I
make
know
less
I
than
am.
like billions
I
of
know
dollars,
I am.
you're part of the proletariat. Like, even most of the small business owners are part of the proletariat.
Yeah.
Even though they are the owner class, they're still part of the proletariat, because they are the workaday majority. They're not the people that are sitting up in their ivory towers, with their feet kicked up, while they extract the profits off the labor of others.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a small business owner. Small business owners generally work their asses off 7 days a week.
Oh yeah,
just trying to stay afloat.
80 hours a week or whatever. But
so I view those people as also part of the proletariat. Like, those folks they're on my team. That's how I feel about it. Like, they may not realize it, but they're part of the group that I am fighting for.
Yeah. I think, and this is just my 2 cents, and I am not on this team.
I'll still fight for you, Rob.
Fight the good fight, man. I appreciate that. And you know what? If it all works out, then I'm a survivor first and foremost, so I'll do what I need to. But what was I trying to say? So I don't, in the current situation, in the current setup, I don't think you can get to the point with the current ideological bent of some of these individuals who are being propped up. I don't think you can get to a point where you can achieve a cohesive message. And it has more to do with the people that you would refer to and I would refer to as the grifters, more than anyone trying to deliver a real message. And there's a lot of people I can put in that box on either side. But you remember I sent you that article, The Race to Dinner? Do you remember that? No. Specific instance? It was the 2 ladies who were of a minority who were going around and charging white ladies $1,000 a plate for these small dinner parties to basically tell them how racist they were.
Oh yeah.
And it was a self-fulfilling, and we discussed
I remember
and we discussed how it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, because to deny your racism as an average middle-aged white lady liberal, to deny that you were racist was to proclaim your racism, but to proclaim your racism was then you acknowledge it and you have to keep working on it, and the way that you keep working on it is you keep paying us money. And if that's the argument, if that's the tack that they take, then there is no defense, and it's better off not to play. You're just better off to just ignore those people, because if the words like, no, I'm not a racist, whatever, like, eat me, and then that in and of itself is a proclamation of someone's racism, then get out. Like, I don't have any time for you. I don't have any time for you whatsoever.
Yeah, that makes it tough to really push the message, like how do you progress? And because what a lot of that stuff does is it pushes the normies away.
Yeah.
Because most people they're not trying to hear it. Like that shit with Coca-Cola. Like, people aren't trying to hear it.
But that thing, yeah, and exactly that shit from Coca-Cola, and it came from one of the biggest grifters out there today.
Yeah, she's
like Robin DiAngelo was the worst, and the reason I hate that so much, like that is the biggest litmus test for me as to whether or not someone is worthwhile of listening to, even taking them seriously, is if they have the position that someone says like, no, I'm not a racist, that automatically makes them racist. You're not worth my time. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, you can have a discussion after that point. You can talk about like, well, whatever. But like, if your automatic point is like, no, this just proves it, get out.
From the Coca-Cola standpoint, I understand they've since scrubbed her stuff since all the publicity and
LinkedIn scrubbed it all off, yeah.
But what I get it from their standpoint, and I get how you get sold on that stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you say to Coca-Cola, "Hey, listen, in order to prevent you guys from being sued for being racist, if someone in your company does racist things, I can provide this training. Um, you guys pay me a bunch of money. I can provide this training to your employees that will really help in case you get sued later on down the road and you've done the training. So there's, blah, 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 right?
I'm
And so you
yeah.
really
Go ahead.
probably don't look into it very hard, right? You're like, okay, yeah, whatever, let's do it.
I don't know, man. Because the thing is, like, I work for a corporation. I work for a major corporation, and we have like diversity officers and diversity inclusion teams and all this stuff around that. So like, it's someone's job, at least in my corporation, to like look into that stuff. Like somebody gets paid big bucks to just do that. And so the idea that someone didn't look into it, I think would be.
You think it's wrong?
I think that's incorrect. Like because I work in that atmosphere, and I get the emails from the CEOs and the people that are like, we are doing this and this and this and this, and we're all going to be one team and do great things together. And I think at some point every corporation uses that one team slogan. Synergies. Well, synergies is really just a fancy word of saying layoffs, honestly. It really is, because what it means is that we've got two overlapping businesses and we only need one. Synergies are layoffs.
That's terrible.
I've learned that.
This book that we were reading, So You Want to Talk About Race, it was optional. I signed up for it.
Yeah.
So and I felt like and so really a lot of the things that I put in my email were to test how safe a space this really was.
Yeah. Can I ask you a related question as to being a white male teacher? You're already in a minority. Are you the only person that looks like you in this reading group? Do you know?
No, there are two others.
Okay.
There are two other white men. But they're both history teachers, which I found interesting. They're definitely not coaches, because you know the difference, right?
I know the type.
And
yeah.
so, and so on that, on me being a coach, and I told you this a couple weeks ago, but I look how I look. I am aware of how I sound, like of how I look. I don't look like I'm a left-leaning socialist.
Yeah. And
Like
no matter what it is, when we get mad, we scare people. Like
yeah. So a couple weeks ago, one of the things, because this is, I have done a lot of research on trans issues this year, because I had a kid who I thought was trans. It's not somebody who's ever said anything to me, but just based on appearance and things like that. So because I was so scared that I was going to offend, that I was going to say something wrong. So I did a lot of research. And finally, it's a half a semester long. Finally, I had this assignment. It was called $100,000, and it's part of our paper trading in the stocks. They get $100,000 of paper trading, and so I wanted to talk about how much $100,000 was. And so I said, the assignment was, what would you do with $100,000? You can't spend anything more than $10,000 on anything, any one thing. Go. And so this person told me that they would go and get transition therapy and stuff, and like be able to afford all of the things that go along with that, and how amazing it would be, and da 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 da. And so, of course, I was just like, wow, thank you for sharing with me. Like that was I can only assume that was really difficult. Like that you had to step outside of a box, you had to step outside of your comfort zone to tell me that. And so I was just like, I don't know, it made me feel really good, like that student trusted me enough to inform me and put that in an assignment that I was definitely going to read, So anyway, we talked after that. She gave me her pronouns and the name that she prefers to be called and all that stuff. It was a good conversation. So I was very happy with that, because again, I know what I look like. You meet me and I have, a hard stare, and I'm big and bearded and white. So
and bald.
So I know. Yeah, I'm bald, and so I know. But there are kids in the school that have never ever seen me without a hat. And so when I take off my hat, they're like, "What? Coach, you're bald? Yeah, you didn't know? I've never seen you without a hat." So it's so funny, because it's like part of my look. It's like part of my identity at this point. And so just to have a hat on. And so when I walk through the halls and the principal's telling the other kids to take their hats off, I'm like,
turn around and go the other way.
Just gonna keep walking.
So Coach doesn't have to take it off. It's fine. Coach is fine. It's funny.
It's just
I still crack up thinking about, like, when we were at your, I think it was your middle son's, second oldest son's scout trip or something like that, and we were standing by the tree chatting, and that kid came up to us and he was like, "Are both of y'all brothers?" I'm like, "Nope, just the one of us."
Just one of us.
Get out.
We're not both brothers.
We've got 25 minutes left. Do you want to tell me why Biden is just the worst?
Why I hate Biden?
Yeah.
So, if you talk to Democrat voting, not politically active people, so the people that vote Democrat, they're not really politically active, they don't really pay attention, this is how the conversation generally goes. "Bro, where's my check?"
I want my money. Yeah.
It's like, man, I've been trying to pressure him to get those out. That man lied to me. Well, I know you think he lied, but when he said 2,000, immediately he really meant 1,400. Maybe.
Later.
In March.
Sometime.
Maybe.
So,
some of the things that are driving our folks crazy are the things that we work to get these people, elected for. The stimulus check, $15 minimum wage, student debt forgiveness, or free college, even if you don't want to forget the student debt, kids in cages, deportations, still bombing
new bombs,
people,
new bombs,
and the police have killed over 100 people, and so it and so all the excuses come out when you start mentioning these things. Well, it's only been 30 days. He hasn't been right. You had enough time to go bomb Syria. You could legalize weed with a stroke of a pen. Trump could have done that. I mean, he didn't campaign on that, but still.
He didn't campaign on what? I'm sorry. I was trying to find Crystal Ball's tweet because she had laid it out pretty good.
legalization of marijuana.
Oh yeah,
He could legalize marijuana right now
with a signature. Well, what?
Yeah. But he didn't campaign on that. And so that's not a campaign prompt. So.
She spells it with a Y.
I get it.
Messed up. She had a really good tweet that was aimed at Biden. So when they said $2,000 checks immediately, what they actually meant was $1,400 checks whenever we got it after bombing Syria and abandoning the minimum wage hike. Good luck in midterms.
Dude, the Democrats are going to get crushed in the midterms. Because everything that, like, they pushed for to get elected, to get people out, to get people to vote, they're shitting all over now. Yeah. And so
do you think go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, these people aren't going to show up in the midterms, and then we're gonna lose everything. What do you think's going to fucking happen, you retards? Sorry for saying retards.
I'm gonna leave that in, Mr. PC. What do you think the progressives will do if Donald Trump does split off his little Patriot Party? Would they take the chance and split from the Democrats and actually create 4 parties? And ultimately basically use the populist movement on either the left and the right to destroy the establishments?
So
I think that would be great. Personally,
the left or the progressives or the People's Party, one of those things would have to get very, very strong.
Yeah.
And the difference is Trump will have the monetary backing, whatever he decides to do. The People's Party or the progressives are committed to small dollar, regular people donations. Mm. And so when Bernie's raised a shit ton of money, mm-hmm. right? Like, Bernie raised a lot of money from strictly small dollar donations. But I don't know that they have the power to compete on a large scale congressionally, in the lower races.
You don't think that you could
that's the power of the binary party system, or the two-party system. The power really comes from the bottom of those two parties, political parties. Mm. Because you start with the mayors and the city council, and then you have the state representatives, and they control a lot of the stuff. So you would nationally, to have those parties and to make those parties viable, you would have to win some lower races. That's what I think.
I think you're right.
I don't think that you can take over systemically without starting in smaller races, smaller governments.
There's been a lot of traffic on the right on the old or the new, the Donald, whatever they're calling it now. They're calling it Patriots now, because they're ready for the Patriot Party. I mean, they've already basically jumped that thing, but there's been a lot of chatter on that one about how do you become your local district chair, and how do you go start county chair, county meetings for Republican parties. And so a lot of the people, at least on the right, are basically positioning themselves to take that power from the Republicans should the thing split. Because I guarantee you, anybody posted on that board is not going to stick with the GOP.
That's true. But I think also the other issue that I have is it falls back to that intersectionality argument that I have is the infighting on the left.
Mm-hmm.
How do you consolidate real leftist power when we're always fighting amongst ourselves?
Despots.
When the smallest thing will split a whole group off.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, oh, well, he said something I didn't like and it was problematic, and so now we're going to go do something else.
Yeah, you do it by having despots like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer tell you what to do.
Yeah, they're not left.
No, but they, again, I don't know, I think they have a lot more control over at least the messaging, and maybe their control is more like falling in line with what's popular, a la like corporate rainbow flags kind of deal, you know, where they're like, hey, we're going to do this because it's the popular thing, but really we just need your vote for like right now, and then we're going to do whatever we want.
So that leads me to the Mr. Potato Head business.
I don't even know. Okay, so explain to me. I saw some memes on that. I have no idea what that's all about.
So basically, Hasbro, I think, announced that they're just going to call their Potato Head and not Mr. Potato Head. And ultimately, to me, here's what I think. One, corporations do this shit to generate noise about their business. So Hasbro decides, hey, we need a re-release. We need something to generate some business. So they say, let's piss off the conservatives. So what happens is they say, okay, Mr. Potato Head is no longer Mr. Potato Head. It is just Potato Head. It is gender neutral. And they specifically say gender neutral, right?
It's a potato.
So then the woke liberal crowd goes and purchases said potato heads because they want to prove to their neighbors and friends that they are woke, even though nobody fucking plays with goddamn potato head anymore, but they want to buy one because it's part of what the thing to do, right? Mm. Well, and then the conservative crowd, they get pissed off, right? And they can't shut the fuck up about it. And so it generates a lot of clicks into Hasbro. A lot of talk. Hasbro starts trending. Mr. Potato Head starts trending, right? It's all part of business. It's part of the business cycle. So they virtue signal to the woke crowd, and they piss the conservative crowd off, and it's all on purpose. Mm-hmm. They do it knowingly because it generates clicks. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you.
That's the end of rant.
It's one of those things that that's horrifying. I gotta show this to you real quick. It's the Nancy Pelosi rising sun.
Just saw that.
What the hell is that?
I just saw that.
Oh yeah. Sorry, segue there. That's why I lost my train of thought. I think you see that a lot you see it all the time in businesses trying to do woke things or not woke things or whatever. Like, apparently there's this new Harry Potter game coming out. I just saw the news yesterday on because that's what I pay attention to sometimes whenever I'm just tired of politics. But it was basically like an oddly written article claiming, I have no basis for this, but it was claiming that the director of the game was apparently this pro Gamergate guy, and we talked about the Gamergate and what all that entailed. So it's this guy who was on the side opposite of the Twitter ladies, and is apparently very very much in that kind of vein. And so he's making the new Harry Potter game, and there's a lot of people who are upset about that they would pick this guy to make this Harry Potter game from the wokest of the J.K. Rowlings, who's now actually a TERF and not very woke at all. And I don't know, it's just kind of an interesting thing. And I think at the end of the day, and I don't know how it is for other industries. Well, I do know in a lot of cases, like you said, like Coke has a deal right now where conservatives are mad at it. Mr. Potato Head has a thing where conservatives are mad at it, but they're making money elsewhere or whatever. So who really cares, right? In games, most of us are apolitical. They don't care. They just want to play a fun thing. And they don't want ideological agendas like shoved down their throat when they're just trying to play a game on either side.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see like what comes out of it. I don't know if it was just like the release trailer, so I'm sure it's still a long ways off, and news will come and go about it. But it was just something interesting. Your topic made me think about. I got to get Pelosi off my other screen here. It's just weird looking at it. So another thing on Biden, man, he is the worst. Like, I don't know, like he definitely is operating as you would expect, like a second term president, right? Like he just doesn't care, it seems, to whether or not he can get reelected in 2024.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, because he's not going to be.
I don't think he will still be president then, but that's for health reasons and not other things. I mean, I'm just the video that came out where he's like looking at the executive order they put down in front of him, and he looks up and he says, "I don't know what this is," and they're like, "Sign it anyway." Just, you know.
Well, the same could be said for Trump.
True.
He wasn't exactly literate. I'm just kidding. He just didn't pronounce. I couldn't hear what you said.
Nothing. I was.
He just didn't pronounce words well.
Quotes.
Because he was like. Yeah. He could read-ish.
It's much easier to have people tell you what it says, right?
Yeah. Hey, next week I want to. I just saw this article from Time Magazine, and it says the top 1% of Americans have taken $50 trillion from the bottom 90%, and that's made the U.S. less secure. I know we don't have time to read it and then go through it, but I just I want to put it on the list. It just seems really interesting. It looks like they've got numbers to back it up.
You know, the extraction of wealth from the middle class and lower class to the wealthy during this COVID lockdown has been the biggest transfer of wealth that the world has ever seen. And it's all going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You know, and
I agree, absolutely.
You know, and while you know, there's a lot to be said for like who's to blame. You know, on one hand, a lot of people on the left want to say, well, it's the conservatives, they didn't wear their masks and blah 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 blah.
I blame Ronald Reagan.
And the conservatives are blaming the Democrats for, well, you locked us down and you kept everybody from work and you sent everybody home, and so all we could do was order crap off of Amazon, which just put more money in the pockets of Amazon and Walmart and these other big box realtors that were the only places that were allowed to be open in some instances.
Well, that's not true. It was just a matter of like what type of business it was.
Yeah.
So, but dude, like I went to Lowe's a lot.
Yeah, it's all that was open. Right? I mean, well, around here I had a little McCoy's around the corner, but they don't have some of the nicer like fixtures or stuff that I need. That's all. This is all hardware and construction lumberyard store, and so if I need like aluminum tape or something like I did the other day, like
how is McCoy's? Well, I've got one over here in Terrell. How is that?
It's all right. Like I said, it's all it's construction equipment. It's a big lumber yard, so you're going to be able to get wood a lot cheaper there than you probably will at Lowe's, honestly.
They're never open when I go by, though.
Yeah, they're closed on Sundays. At least the one here is.
I mean, but they also close at like 4 o'clock or some shit. Like,
oh yeah, your chain is different than mine because my place is open at 6 because everybody. So 6 or 7 on weekdays over here because everybody works.
That'd have been lovely.
So.
Yeah,
so,
no. This place, well, I mean, that was also during the pandemic when I was like doing all of the
construction building and things. Yeah, so no, I mean, I like it, and if I can get stuff there, then I will. But a lot of times they just don't have what I'm looking for, so I end up going to the Lowe's or Home Depot on the other side of town. So
yeah. Also, I've been hitting up Ace a lot because Ace is franchised small business. Most of those are.
Yeah, we don't have an Ace around here. Or if we do, it's out of the way. I like small hardware stores. They're kind of fun. Like I just like them. Like the people are generally better. They most of the time know what they're talking about. At least if you catch an older guy that's been there for a minute, they generally know what they're talking about. Or you run into like I needed some help the other day. I'm going to do a floating shelf right back over here. And so I ran into this dude when I was asking questions. Like, hey, I can help you. And it turns out he used to work for Ace. And now he's like a construction person, but he spent a lot of time at Ace and knew exactly where to find whatever I was looking for and like really helped me. That's like some random dude in the store?
Yeah. That's why I like small hardware stores.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I think they're great. I don't know, like the as far as like the wealth extraction goes, yeah, I mean I think it's probably as bad as it's ever been as far as people not being able to provide for their own families, like, and I hate that. I want people to be able to be self-sufficient, and so like the idea that we are going to impose restrictions to where you cannot do these things and then punish you for it on top of that.
This is talking about though from 1975 to 2018. It was in 2020 it crossed this number they're talking about, crossed the 50 trillion mark. So this isn't like this just happened. Like this has been going on, which is another reason why I blame Ronald Reagan and Art Laffer and that crew more than what's going on now, or Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump. Like this has been a problem for a long, long time.
Pelosi was pretty much in office back then. So was Biden.
True.
And Schumer was started in the 80s, I believe.
Yeah, that's valid. You make valid points. And a lot of people made a lot of money.
And you know what? McConnell started back then too.
Yeah.
So
they're very very wealthy. But that's kind of when all of that stuff started. Like it they got the media on board to explain how it's supposed to help us. The bootstraps argument is just like it was literally a term to describe impossibility. Like, how do you pull yourself up from your bootstraps? Are you going to reach down and pull yourself up? It's an impossibility. That's why the term was coined. And so when they say pull yourself up by your bootstraps, they're saying do this impossible fucking thing. Think about how do you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Can you pull yourself up to the next level from reaching down and pulling? No, you have to grab up and pull, right? That's how physics works. That's the gravity and all that stuff, right?
Second law: every force has an equal and opposite force, right?
Right. So that's that's why it's such a misnomer when people are like, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. No, the fuck you didn't. It's a term used to describe an impossibility. This article that again I want to talk about later. Nobody in a society gets rich on their own.
No, you have to have other people pay you money, give you money.
Well, not only that, but you have to have help. You have to have things that are part of the society to get to where you want to be, right? So, for example, like let's just say Starbucks. The dude literally started it from scratch, but the water piped into his store, part of society. The infrastructure to have the water pumped into his store to make the coffee is part of society. The roads to deliver the coffee, part of society. Like all of these things that benefit everyone are the reasons that you pay taxes. They're the reasons that you are able to get rich. Is the society?
Let me ask this question then: Does not Dunkin' Donuts benefit the exact same from society as Starbucks? Does not the small coffee shop on the corner, local brew or whatever you want to call it, benefit from the same benefits? And then ergo, what's the difference between small struggling coffee shop and Starbucks when they were starting out, right? Because you're saying these things benefited the same because of the existence within a society. So then what's the difference? Why was one ultra mega successful and the other struggling? Is it as simple as branding? Like,
potentially.
Maybe, Did one do something better or different than the other?
Yeah. I mean,
sure.
Markets are markets. Sure.
Yeah. So
markets are markets.
I guess what I'm saying is that it seems almost an irrelevant point to the greater question as far as like you having water plumbed in as part of society. Like obviously we're part of society. We live here. We exist within the society, so we are a part of the society.
My point is that nobody gets rich on an island.
Oh, okay.
Like you exist here. You can't get rich by yourself. It's an impossibility.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just kind of see that idea as a obvious point, I guess, not as something as profound.
You would think.
As like
you would think.
I would think, and I do think, and I think that it's a matter of having the same access as everyone else, and then being able to do something more with it. Right. So yeah, no one gets rich on.
But does everyone have the same access?
Nobody really exists.
But does everyone have the same access? I think that's the issue. Is that not everyone does have the same access?
That's potential, but that's a whole other. I mean, if you're talking about water piping, then I would say everyone's pretty much got the same access.
Everyone has the same water. Everyone gets to drive on the same roads. But if I was just using that as an example.
Now, if you want to talk about like loan access and small business startup capital, that's a whole different conversation. But as far as like access to public infrastructure, like Everybody's got at least that same starting point, right?
Right, but that's not. That's a different point than the point that I was making, I guess.
Yeah.
The point that I was making was that you
can't get rich.
You can't get rich. You can't get rich by yourself. Nobody. This is another thing. Nobody is a billionaire without fucking over a bunch of fucking people. I don't think you can become a billionaire without fucking over a bunch of people.
Not that I'm disagreeing, and maybe this is an exception and not a rule. Who did Elon Musk screw over?
I don't know enough about his history.
Yeah, I'm just curious because the idea in the modern world and the internet age is that wealth can be created essentially from nothing. And I say essentially from nothing because like Facebook exists, and before it existed, it was really just an idea, right? And to create that, you wrote a program, you wrote the code, you wrote some algorithms or whatever, you built the page, and so the product was this interconnectivity social media website. And like, what did you take from your consumer, right? All you took was like basically freely given data, and then you made your money selling that data to your businesses to sell more ads, right? That was the whole marketing plan for Facebook. And now it's $1 billion company and they're worth tons of money. But like, was there a resource extraction? Was there a exploitation? Like, you could say there was some exploitation of the user base, and I would absolutely agree with that. Like taking the data, just selling it off, and that's why you get all those spam calls or whatever else, right? But like, that wealth was just created, right? It wasn't like somebody went and dug out gold and then the value that they had was the value of the gold that they had, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was just people wanting to like, hey, I want to use this service you created. Here's money. And like advertisers to get access to like sell more products or whatever else. So, in the sense that like they got rich screwing somebody over, I would say, yeah, they screwed over like essentially all of their users. You know, you could make that argument.
Well,
but,
there was some but there was also people that he screwed over in their rise. I mean, I watched that Facebook movie, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he screwed some of the people that like helped him create the thing.
Yeah.
And so like that's kind of part of it. So okay, I know we're getting close to the end. Here we go. Hot take time. Hot take. You ready? If Thomas Jefferson is a national hero and should be memorialized and edified, why can't we do the same with Bill Cosby? Bill Cosby did a lot of good for his community, a lot of good for the black community. They both raped a lot of women.
I mean, I think it's an interesting idea, and it's completely flawed, in my opinion. But it is interesting.
How is it flawed? How?
You draw an equivalency between helping a community and creating a nation. I mean, you could argue their sins are the same, but I would say their accomplishments are on a completely different scale. So,
in your opinion, their plus columns aren't close because of what you prioritize. That's your prioritization. Because aside from the rape, the wealthy plantation owner has quite a few more sins to add on. So, like, on top of raping, like there's quite a number of sins. Are you net positiving the creation of the nation with all of the sins?
I would say that's a fair assessment, and you know, in the time that it happened. Okay, so Cosby was both like morally and legally bankrupt in his actions, right? So only through like you're viewing Jefferson through this 2021 lens as like being the same, and so like in his day he wasn't necessarily the worst, right? It wasn't even like close, and his ideas about freedom, and while they're arguably unattainable, you know, we've had that argument, we're talking about the 1619 project and all that stuff, they did set the stage for the future, and he kind of set it up, right? So like if you think of it in that context, what lasting impact did Cosby have?
So hold on. So you're saying because raping your slaves was legal back then, it's not as negative. Okay, I just want to verify that. But one could argue, though, that Thomas Jefferson was only helping his community, his wealthy landowners. Okay, he had a lot more power, a lot more influence than a black man in America during the 70s, 80s, 90s. Thomas Jefferson helped white landowners. Cosby, to talk about his lasting effect, he brought the idea of an affluent black nuclear family to the forefront of American identity. And this wasn't that long after Jim Crow ended. So think about Jim Crow ending, and then like 10, 15, however long many years later, let's see, the Civil Rights Act, 69 was kind of the benefit, the culmination of all the efforts. And then like in the 80s, here's Bill Cosby. He's the number one show on TV. He's got an affluent black family, nuclear family, on national TV, bringing it to national prominence. His impact on the black community has absolute lasting effects. Absolutely.
I mean, I see your argument and I understand it. I think it's flawed, and I think that elevating him to that level, it undermines a lot of the other things that were going on in the black community during those times, even during Jim Crow. And you had things like Black Wall Street, you had Hendrix and other black musicians, the influence on every genre through the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and into today. You know, it was so prevalent enough that you had other white artists like stealing their work because it was so good. It was just good music and everything else. So they existed. They just weren't on national television. And so, I mean, by that respect, it's just spotlighting kind of what was happening. And so in that regard, I think it could have been, I mean, I guess it could have been anybody, maybe, you know, potentially. Anything else I think that Cosby did as far as like his benefits, none of it was controversial. Like the bad that he did was so bad, but all the good that he did, it wasn't like a controversial thing.
Why does it have to be controversial? And elevating Cosby doesn't ignore any of those other benefits or those other people and their achievements. It doesn't ignore that. It's just like edifying Jefferson doesn't ignore Washington or Franklin or any of those guys. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, so I guess I'm trying to say that like Cosby was doing what like many other black Americans were doing at the time. And Jefferson did something no one else did. And the consequences for his actions, Jefferson's actions, were far more dire and lasting.
So I'm not saying that these guys have to be on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I'm saying that one is edified in this in history. He's got statues. We have his house is a museum. Like, he is loved universally. Also a piece of shit.
I was like, universally, I don't know if I would say that anymore.
I'm just saying, like, we look at Thomas Jefferson and yes, he did a lot of great things. Also a piece of shit. Like, let's be honest, okay? But I'm not saying that Bill Cosby has to be on that same level. I'm not saying we have to build statues to Bill Cosby. I'm saying that if we can overlook Thomas Jefferson's sins, why not Bill Cosby's?
Yeah, you know, I guess what I'm saying is I never would have drawn the comparison in the first place. You know, the initial statement is like, if we're going to edify one, we should edify the other. And maybe it's a factor of time, you know. And you know, if you get right down to it, I think that, like I said, the comparison is flawed. And if you want to compare them, you could basically, the comparison that I would make is yeah, they both did good things and bad things, and they were human. So, but as far as the edification, I mean, like you said, you have statues built to one and not the other. And that in and of itself should tell you the scale and the magnitude of why I don't think these two people are comparable.
Well, I don't honestly think anybody should have a statue anyway. I think we should, like, make art, but not, like, I mean, because at the end of the day, people are people. You know, we don't need to deify them.
No, I don't necessarily think we're deifying these people. I think it's more a matter of...
Bro.
I think there are those that do, but in the grand scheme of things, the reason that statues exist is to honor the great things that they did. Not necessarily... You know, you can remember the bad things, but it's really to remember what great things that individuals did for us.
And that's why I don't think we should have them, because it detracts from the shitty things that they did. I mean, specifically slavery, specifically rape. Like, when you honor and you lift these people up, like, you are detracting or ignoring the shit that they did. That's why I bring up Bill Cosby, because it is controversial, and that's why, like, I you know, it's a troll essentially, just to be like,
have you ever been to
everyone
Monticello?
agrees that this was terrible.
Yeah.
Huh?
Have you ever been to Monticello?
Yeah, we went together, dude.
Yeah, we went together. So, do you remember?
You and I, were both.
We were there together. Yes. So, you know, I still remember that trip, and it's one of those things that's like, I didn't really feel like it was sugar coated, like when we were there, right? And they had a big statue of him out front, but then they were like, "This is where the slave pen was. He raped these people, like." And he slept with this one here, and he had a son, and it was this, and like he did all.
That's
of
true.
these things.
They did kind of explain all that. Yeah, that's
so
valid.
like all of that was his house, right? Like, so like that's the place, you know. This is where the magic happened. This is where he wrote a lot of the works and letters, and you know, but also where he did all the bad things. It's like
That's
it's
true.
all
They
part
did
of history.
talk about it.
And
They
so,
did talk about it.
You know, it's one thing to like. I think that in and this is just kind of in a general sense, right? But like if you wanted to remove the statues and put them somewhere else, cool. I don't like the destruction of art in any of its forms. Especially like pieces, like singular pieces. Like somebody wants to go out and burn their CDs, whatever. It's a reproduction. I don't care. But like singular forms of art, I don't really like the destruction of those things. And because I think the history is so important, right? Both remembering the good and the bad, and I don't know. Again, maybe it's a more modern take on what like someone like Cosby meant to the community and meant to his people, and me not being part of that community, and not really being around to see the effects when his show first got started into its later days. Because I mean, by the time I was watching his show, it was all on reruns. Yeah, he'd already retired. So I mean,
I remember it though. We watched the shit out of it. Like we sat down and watched it, and then watched the spinoff, the Different World, I think it was called, the one where they were all the black people in college at the HBCU.
Mm-hmm.
We watched that too. I think it was A Different World. I don't remember. Different Strokes. No, Different Strokes was that was what you talking about, Willis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, my point is that I honestly really don't think. Yeah, if you want to put these statues in a museum, fine, but I don't know that like we need to have them all over town square and be like, this is what represents us, especially down here. And I understand the wanting to tear down the Civil War statues, the South statues, changing the names from Robert E. Lee High School to, because there's like 30 of them down here. And
yeah, I get it.
I get it. But also, I don't give a fuck about a statue. Like, I mean, like, people are upset that people don't want these statues up.
I mean, to me, and here's kind of my thing is there's a few groups that go around and smashing statues, and none of them are really ranked highly on my list of like good people. And I mean, the things come to mind are like the ISIS groups, the smashing up the churches and synagogues and everything else.
Did you cheer when they tore down the Saddam Hussein statue?
Honestly, when was that?
2001?
2001? No. I can tell you, just knowing when that was, I didn't cheer. I didn't really care.
Oh. There was a lot of people that did.
Yeah.
A lot of Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Well,
because that meant something.
It meant something that the Iraqi people were the ones tearing it down. So.
But it's blasphemy when groups do it here.
Is it a difference between someone had their statue built of themselves or someone else built a statue to honor someone? Or are you saying they're the same?
I'm saying they're the same. I don't think it matters who built it.
I say they're different. I say if I build myself a statue in self-flagellation, and then someone else goes and tears it down, yeah, all right.
Those statues went up when? Most of the Civil War statues went up when?
In that case, most of them I believe went up in the 1870s or 80s. No? That would just be my guess, is that they went up somewhere after the radical Republicans were run out of the South, which I guess would have been... When was that? That would have been in the almost as late as 1880, 1890. I can't remember. It was part of the anyway. Yeah, what I'm thinking of is probably incorrect.
So also the 1950s. Like 1890s, 1920s with a smaller peak in the late 50s to mid 60s. When the civil rights movement was
when
happening.
They were pushing that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yep. Got me there.
You know, I'm just saying.
I still don't.
I also agree with Andrew Jackson being taken off the 20. That dude's a piece of shit. Andrew Jackson. So I'll give you. Okay, so if you want to, I'll give you this. Thomas Jefferson sends to good, bad to good, was a net positive. Andrew Jackson is a net negative. That dude is awful. He's an awful person. He's an awful president. I'm just saying. Like, this guy is a bad guy.
You don't like the expulsion of Native Americans?
Yes, that's no, I don't like that.
Did he?
So I am all about the removal of Andrew Jackson. I'm on board. Whatever we got to do.
The Indian Removal Act. Yeah. I was looking for
net negative.
No, I've got presidents mixed up, so it wasn't Jackson. Never mind.
It was Jackson that did the Indian removal.
It was. No. I was thinking of something different. I was thinking of something Jefferson did when he was president. So.
No. Yeah, Andrew Jackson. Net negative. I'll give you net positive for Thomas Jefferson.
I'll
even give it to you for Washington.
Yeah, you can have that one.
Terrible.
All right. So we're overtime. I'm going to say that next time we are going to talk about this guy right here and this Taibbi.
Is that the
article,
Matt Taibbi?
And we're going to get into rights and censorship. What is it? What are rights? What is censorship? And stay tuned.
All right. BroPartisan's out. Thank you for watching this episode of BroPartisan Hacks with Rhys and Rob. We really, really appreciate you watching, tuning in. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to us. We're putting out content as often as we can. Share it with your friends. Get it out there. Get our names out there. Also, hit that bell, tap that bell right there so that you can get updated when we put out a new video. Rob and I are trying to pump these videos out as often as we can. However, we both have day jobs, we have families, so our schedules have to line up so that we can make a new video. Speaking of our day jobs, our opinions and views expressed are our own and in no way represent those of our respective employers. Thank you. Thanks again for watching.